This is a fairy tale, and he knows it. Get out!
Welcome back, Warner fam. Today, I'm recapping a 2009 horror sci-fi film, Carriers. So, keep your eyes wide open and stay safe. The movie starts with a deadly infection caused by a strange virus that has wiped out most of the global population. Only a few survivors remain. Two brothers, Brian and Danny, along with Brian's girlfriend Bobby and Danny's friend Kate, are on a road trip to Turtle Beach, a childhood spot they hope will be safe from the epidemic. But things take a turn when they spot a car blocking the road. Inside are two survivors, Frank and his daughter Jod. Brian immediately tells everyone to roll up the windows. Frank asks if they can spare some fuel in exchange for food and water. Kate warns that Jod is infected, but Frank insists they are safe. Brian isn't taking any chances. He quickly starts the engine and gets ready to drive off. As they speed away, Frank suddenly smashes their window with a wrench. Brian swerves to avoid being hit, but the car's bottom is damaged, leaking gasoline. Now they have to deal with a new danger. Eventually, the car breaks down, and Danny and Bobby suggest going back to make a deal with Frank, but Brian and Kate argue that it's too dangerous. Left with no other choice, the group decides to carry fuel cans and return to Frank. When they approach, Brian pulls out a gun and demands Frank's car. Frank tells them that the CDC has created a temporary cure at a nearby high school, and he needs to get Jod there to save her. Brian doubts Frank's story, but Danny has an idea. The plan is simple. The four of them will sit in the front seats, while Frank and Jod stay in the back, separated by a plastic barrier. They'll sanitize the whole car before heading to the school. It's risky, but it's their only shot. As they pass their broken car, Danny goes back to grab an old childhood photo of him and Brian. Later, Bobby plays with Jod inside the car. Brian cracks a crude joke, and Bobby slaps him, causing the car to veer off the road. In the chaos, Kate accidentally loosens the plastic barrier. Panicked about the infection, she jumps out of the car, and Danny follows to calm her down. Together, they spot an abandoned car nearby. Danny and Brian check it for fuel, but when they look inside, they find the body of an infected man. Danny reaches for the keys, but the man suddenly moves and weakly speaks. Startled, Danny rushes out, while the infected man bangs on the door, pleading for help. The brothers quickly flee. That night, the group sets up camp. While Brian and Bobby sneak off for some alone time, Kate and Danny talk to Frank and Jod. Frank asks why they're heading to Turtle Beach. Danny explains it's their childhood home, isolated and hopefully safe until the outbreak ends. As they sit by the fire, they suddenly hear a noise on the road. A tank is chasing a car. A man is shot by someone from the tank, and the sound of gunfire sends chills down their spines. Alarmed, the group quickly puts out the fire and hides, hoping they won't be seen. The next morning, the group continues toward the high school. On the way, they pass the body of the man who was shot, now hanging from a tree. They reach an infected town where no one has survived. Bodies are piled in trash trucks, and the place feels like a ghost town. Inside the high school, they hope to find the serum. Bobby stays back with Jod while the others search the building. While exploring, they see a child run into a room. Following quietly, they find a doctor working there. Frank joins them, and they ask if he has the serum for Jod, but the doctor reveals that the serum only works for 3 days. It delays death, but it doesn't cure the infection. Shockingly, the doctor is preparing to euthanize infected children, offering them a painless death. Frank begs him to save Jod and the others, but the doctor explains he's done everything he can. Sometimes mercy is the only option. Realizing there's no real cure, Frank lets the doctor go ahead with euthanasia. The group leaves the school, their hope fading with every step. Meanwhile, Bobby is in the car, playing with Jod, but suddenly, the little girl starts having trouble breathing and collapses. Bobby has to act fast to save her. She removes the plastic shield and reaches for Jod, but as Bobby pulls off Jod's mask to help her breathe, Jod suddenly vomits blood all over Bobby and the inside of the car. Just then, the others return from the school. Bobby quickly retapes the shield and takes off her bloody coat, trying to hide what happened. Frank climbs into the car and sees Jod lying on the floor. As he holds her, Jod asks to use the bathroom. Frank gently encourages her to go on her own, but she's too weak, so he helps her. Before leaving, Frank thanks Danny for his kindness, but Brian tells everyone to get in the car and leave Frank and Jod behind. They all know the two won't make it much longer. Later that day, while Danny and Kate are sanitizing the back seats, Bobby secretly hides her bloody coat under the car, staying quiet. She's worried they might leave her behind if they knew what happened. The group drives to a nearby hotel to rest for the night. There, Brian finds a dirty pool. Curious, he pokes at the water with a stick, but when it gets stuck, he pulls it out, revealing a dead body. Startled, he nearly falls in, but Danny catches him just in time. Later, the group plays golf to unwind. At one point, Brian falls in the sand and reaches for Bobby's hand, but she, worried about infection, hands him a golf club instead. Brian tries to joke around, but Bobby is clearly angry. They hit balls toward the broken windows of a nearby building, not realizing it's occupied by armed survivalists. That night, while Danny and Kate are in the hotel lobby, they see lights approaching the door. Knowing it's not Brian, they quickly hide in the kitchen, grabbing a knife just in case. An armed man walks in and notices a missing knife. Danny and Kate try to sneak out, but they're caught. Meanwhile, Brian returns to the hotel and sees armed men patrolling. He realizes the place has been taken over. Brian grabs one of them and forces him to give up information. He finds out that Danny, Kate, and Bobby are being held by the group. The men accuse them of contaminating the hotel and killing a man named Larry, the same one Brian saw in the pool. They force Bobby and Kate to undress, and that's when they notice Bobby is infected. Panicked, the leader tells them to leave immediately. The next day, the group continues traveling, but things are tense. Bobby has tested positive for the virus. Brian makes a harsh decision. He forces Bobby to leave the group. Bobby begs him to let her stay, but rules are rules. She runs after the car, but it drives away. Eventually, they run out of gas. They spot another car in the distance. Brian, still upset over leaving Bobby, insists on stopping the car despite Danny and Kate's concerns. As Danny talks to the two women in the other car and asks for fuel, Brian suddenly shoots them, killing the driver. Danny is furious. He tries to stop Brian from killing innocent people, but Brian is cold and determined. He approaches the surviving woman and forces her out of the car, but she pulls out a gun and shoots Brian in the leg. Injured, Brian fires back and kills her. Limping, he orders Danny to take the fuel, but after what Brian just did, Danny is emotionally shaken. They argue. Brian insists they had no choice. If they didn't act first, they wouldn't survive. They'd never reach Turtle Beach and would eventually die from the virus. Danny says nothing but accepts the grim reality. Kate drives now since Brian is injured. As they keep going, Brian starts to look pale, so Danny suggests stopping at an abandoned house for medical supplies. As they scout the place, Kate notices a broken window on the second floor. Danny climbs in. Inside, he finds an infected woman dead in a chair, still holding a gun. Carefully, he takes the gun. In the next room, he sees a wild dog eating another infected body. Danny spots some medicine on a table nearby and moves in quietly, hoping the dog won't notice. But he accidentally knocks over a jar, startling the dog. It attacks him. Danny shoots it dead and comes out of the house covered in blood. He explains what happened and treats Brian's wound. But then, he realizes Brian is infected too. Danny tells Kate the truth. She wants to leave Brian behind, but Danny can't. He's his brother. They keep driving into the night, isolating Brian in the back seat. Later, when they stop, Brian demands the car keys to make sure they don't abandon him as he weakens and blacks out. Danny quietly takes the gun and keys from him, but Brian isn't fully unconscious. As Danny and Kate try to leave, Brian reveals he had already switched the real keys. Moments later, he unlocks the car from outside. Kate hands Danny the gun, knowing what has to be done. Danny tries to reason with Brian, asking for the keys, but Brian walks toward him, refusing to stop. With no choice, Danny shoots his brother. The next morning, Danny sits beside Brian's burned body, the weight of everything settling heavily on him. He's lost so much. Then, he and Kate drive to Turtle Beach. When they finally reach the old beach house from Danny's childhood, it feels nothing like he remembered. As Danny looks around, the quiet surrounds him, and he can't escape the memory of his brother. The house, once full of laughter, now only holds the silence of their loss. Would you have made the same choices as Danny? Let me know in the comments. So if you liked this, hit subscribe and turn on notifications for more recaps. Thanks for watching. See you next time on Warner Movie Recaps.